We'll do it live. Okay. No. We'll do it live! Fuck it. Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live! Thing sucks!
Welcome. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be back in Tennessee, I'll tell you that much. I spent my weekend in Los Angeles, California. And man, oh man, I do not miss that place. You know, I was out there filming with the great Rambo Van Halen, who recently published a book called Hollywood Samizdat, which is absolutely outstanding. If you have any interest in the film industry, it's not too inside. However, this dude has decades of experience. He's got some of the craziest stories in this book, and some of them are like way too spicy for me to talk about here. You just got to read them for yourself. But Rambo is an outstanding writer, and this is the best insight into Hollywood that I've ever read. I associated with it more than anything else that I've seen, and it's really relatable. It's a beautiful book. I highly suggest you guys buy it and support Rambo like I did this weekend. It was an honor filming with him and with Passage Press. They're a great company. I met some great folks, but man, California is rough, dude. It's rough. And the thing is, as you guys who know me, I grew up in the Pacific Palisades. I was born in Mar Vista. Half my family lived in the Palisades. So every single Christmas, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Passover, Easter, because we did them both, every single one was spent at my grandmother's house on Sunset and PCH in the Palisades. So I grew up around like the most beautiful parts of California, like bar none, because I spent the rest of my childhood in Santa Barbara, which is maybe even better than the Palisades. The area is so stunning, but I swear, man, the damage that's been done by this governor is staggering. And what I find, whenever I find myself missing California, what I realize every time I go back is what I'm missing is a time, not a place. Because the place is still rather beautiful, but it just does not function the way that it used to. Back in the 90s, it felt like it was the golden age of California. And to watch the way things operate now, it's really sad. It's really devastating. And I couldn't wait to get out of there. And what was funny is on my flight back to Tennessee, there were 3 people from Orange County and Beverly Hills, very wealthy, very, you can see it on them. You can see it with their shoes, with their bags. These are high net worth individuals. And as soon as we landed in Tennessee and the engines are off and people are starting to talk, they immediately all started talking shit about Gavin Newsom. And these were not conservative people. They were not. There's certain indicators where you can, and we all know it, I don't need to say it, where you can identify liberals and conservatives. And it's pretty much a uniform rule. These were very wealthy liberals and they hate Gavin Newsom. And Gavin Newsom continues to prove why he's so hateable, as well as his staff. And the kind of stuff that his communications staff is saying about fire victims is just stunning. It's stunning. I can't believe they continue to do this stuff. It's absolutely crazy. But I went to the Palisades while I was out filming with Rambo. And, we're always getting people posting on Twitter about how you've got either Governor Newsom or Karen Bass. They'll tweet about how much construction is going on. And they'll show this like rapid cut montage that really does make it seem like there's a lot going on, right? And then you'll see people like Adam Carolla or James Woods or Spencer posting about how nothing is happening there. And the thing is, they're not necessarily, the people who are saying nothing is happening, they're not posting any footage of the area. Karen Bass and Governor Newsom, when they post about how much construction is going on, they at least have some video. Now, some of the video doesn't necessarily reflect well on them, but they are posting video evidence. And none of these other people who are talking shit about how little construction is going on, they're not posting any video. So what's the truth? Well, I'll be honest, you guys know me. What's my brand? I always shoot it to you straight. No matter what the reality is, I always give it to you straight. Because when you see this mustache, the first word that comes to your mind is straight. So I went to the Palisades and I got some drone footage of the area. And I'm going to show you that footage so you can evaluate it for yourself. And I'm not cutting it together. I'm not doing any crazy montages. We're not doing any close-ups. I'm giving you a wide, sweeping drone shot of the entire section of the Alphabet Streets where there was the most destruction. And you can see for yourself. And I'll pause it if you want, so you can count how much construction is going on. I was actually surprised by how much construction was actually going on there. Okay. And I have enough humility to admit that, but we're not going to pull any punches and we're not going to do any of these fancy edits. We're just going to show you so you can see for yourself, because I think that's important. Now, before we get into that, just on a personal note, I saw a trailer for a new show coming out. Now, this isn't necessarily related to fire, but it is related to me to a certain degree. I want you guys to watch this trailer. And I'm curious your thoughts on it, and then I will give you my thoughts afterwards.
Kids, come on.
What's she looking at?
She's working.
She's working? I thought this was a no-work weekend, Mom.
Night.
Gonna be a coordinated mass attack.
Blood will be shed.
Locked and loaded, been planted for months.
The hunt has begun.
What do you do there all day? All night sometimes.
I track people who are planning attacks. My job is pretending to think like them to stop those people from doing really bad things.
FBI, on your knees!
That's why we call her the Savant. Snipers, bombings, ambushes. We're on the verge of serious violence. I've been watching him for a year and a half. He's recruiting for something. I don't know what it is, but it's massive.
This guy isn't just planning violence. He's out to make a statement.
What kind of a statement?
The kind that history refers to with a month and a date.
Innocent Americans are We need to infiltrate further.
I don't think you should keep pushing this.
Listen to me. They have photos of your family.
You think if you engage with terrible things, you're daring even worse things to happen.
What do you guys think? What do you guys think of that? Does that look neato? I hate Hollywood so much. I hate Hollywood so much. Now, this doesn't just pertain to the challenges that we faced when we were selling Hot Shot, our documentary about wildland firefighters, which has gone on to become the #1 rated firefighter film of any kind of all time. We couldn't sell it. We could not sell the #1 firefighter film of all time. We were in the Chicago Tribune. We're in Rolling Stone. We're on a bunch of different news shows. And that's all just with independent elbow grease. So could you imagine if we had like Netflix support or Apple TV support, how stratospheric that film could have been? One of the reasons we had a hard time selling it is because these studios are so woke. I saw this trailer and it pisses me off so much because, of course, this gal who they put in this role as like the undercover Nazi hunter, of course, she has to have her like Gap commercial approved family, and it's got to be a female. They have to wokeify this. Now, a buddy of mine did this for real. I have a friend out here in Tennessee. His name's Scott Payne. He worked for the FBI for decades, and he was undercover for many, many years. This is the real life guy. This is the guy who is doing the undercover Nazi stuff. Now, he wrote a book about his experience, codenamed Pale Horse. That was his code name, as he lived undercover as a fake white supremacist for years. He almost got killed multiple times. He had to do all kinds of stuff. He had to, drink with these guys. They threatened to kill him multiple times. They had him strip search while he was wearing a wire. And miraculously, they didn't find it, but he was in the basement of a bar and they made him strip because they thought he was a Fed. And somehow they didn't find his wire, which is incredible. It was like God was 100% on his side. This dude suffered so much. I shouldn't say suffered because he's not the victim type. He's like a 6'5" good old boy from East Tennessee. And he and his family had to endure so much while he did this work, busting these guys. And he didn't do it by sitting on a computer. He was out there committing crimes with these guys. Like when they were running stolen vehicles, they set up a fake buyer in Mexico who was a Fed. And so they were able to retrieve all the cars that were stolen. But as far as the white supremacist gangs that he had infiltrated, they thought it was a legitimate buyer. And so he was building up street cred with these guys, like moving money. And that's our taxpayer dollars that he's funneling to these white supremacist gangs just to start building trust and getting deeper in. It took him years to do this. His health suffered as a result of this from all the stress of living a separate life, the potential threats against his family, building these connections with these guys, genuinely trying to become their friends, and that fake it till you make it thing, and then arresting them and putting them away in prison for the rest of their lives. This is the real man who did it. What pisses me off so much is that Hollywood could have made this story about a real guy. And he is such a cool dude. If you go see his Joe Rogan interview, he's so cool, man. I love this guy. Scott's a great man. He has helped me out on multiple occasions with a bunch of stuff. This is a real one. The fact that they have to wipe away the real story to make their stupid woke bullshit, I just had to get that in there because it was so frustrating. All right. By the way, you want to buy Rambo Van Halen's book and you want to buy Scott's book, please support him. This man is a patriot. He's a hero. This guy dedicated his life and his health to serving our country and keeping us safe. And even he will say that white supremacists are not the #1 threat to our country, by the way. And he would agree with me that wildfire is absolutely the #1 threat to our country. Now, speaking of wildfire, let's check in on what's happening with the fires. Uh-oh. Richie Rich Thompson saying bad location at a bad time about the Root fire. We finally got some fires popping off in NorCal. Let's see what's going on with this thing. All right. Yeah, not so bad. By the way, look at that. Look at that Vladi Divac neck. Look how dense this forest is. We've talked about this in previous live streams. Just the sheer overgrowth in California's neglected forests is absolutely staggering. Staggering. That said, I don't know, man. I keep downplaying this season. Look at this, 350 to 400 acres right now. That doesn't necessarily look like anything crazy. You can read a lot into fires just by the smoke, right? It made its push to the ridge. It's probably going to slowly back down. Things are pretty dry right now. They're pretty dry overnight, humidity-wise. But I'm just not seeing it, guys, this year. I'm not seeing it. It's a very tame fire season. Now, the other thing we wanted to check on was the Garnet fire, which we've talked about a lot because it's entering into the Tea Kettle experimental forest. It has pushed in like halfway through the forest. Here, let's see what's going on with that. You know, it's moving slowly. And this is something that we have to point out repeatedly. We don't measure fires by their vertical plume, right? We measure fires by their perimeter growth and the speed at which they do that, right? That's what acres are for. Dense Neck, great band name. Thanks, Save California Hats. Yeah, look, it's going to be burning actively overnight. There's very little recovery. Humidity is very low, but we do have some moisture coming in, as Rich Thompson will make us aware. The fire is not necessarily spreading that rapidly, but it is burning with a lot of intense heat, and it's very stubborn. It's being resistant to control because this area is so dense. You know, once it moved out of the rough fire scar, which is around here, once it pushed north out of that, it got into territory that it hasn't burned in over a century, okay? And the only fire in that area is the 3 parcels or so in the Tea Kettle experimental forest. It's actually 6 parcels. No, 3, 6, 9. 9 parcels that have had prescribed fire. That's the only fire that this area has seen in like a century. So, of course, there's a ton of fuel loading, and any fire that moves through here, it's just going to be very resistant to control. So I think this one's going to be around for a while. It's going to take some rain to really tamp this thing down. I don't have that much more. Like, it's moving so slowly that we haven't really had a chance to check in and see what are the fire effects in that experimental forest. We should see that in the next day or two once it finally progresses out of there, and we can see the post-burn response. And that's going to be the most interesting thing. I'm looking forward to seeing that. So far, I don't know, man. It's not that crazy of a fire season. We'll see if that changes come October. It probably will. But since we have more moisture coming, I don't know, man. Curious what you guys think. It just doesn't feel, it feels like there's only so much in the bottle in any given fire season. And January was so nasty that it's almost like that was the fuel. And this isn't a physical or scientific measurement. It's just kind of an esoteric psychological one that I've noticed with certain patterns. There's only so much toothpaste in the tube. And I think we squeezed out so much of it on January 7th that I'm just not sure that there's a whole lot going on this year. But we'll find out. Now, let's move on to the Palisades reconstruction efforts. Now, I've been on here, Spencer's been on here, Adam Carolla's been on here talking about how there's no rebuilding going on. Now, when I was down there, I spoke with a few people from the Palisades. One of them, he had lost his home in the Alphabet Streets. And he said that he filed for his permit like immediately, got plans from an architect. And before he could even do anything with his insurance company, he was just sort of taking it on faith that the insurance company would follow through. And so he filed his plans immediately, knowing that there was going to be a delay. And he is currently breaking ground on construction. And it's going to take like, he's guessing 7 to 9 months. He still hates Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. Okay, just so you know. But you know, he made an interesting move. Now, a lot of people are still waiting to see like what is insurance going to do? What's going to come of this settlement because the costs of rebuilding are significant. We're still looking at $850 to $900 a square foot right now to rebuild in Palisades. It's very, very expensive. One thing that I'm just going to point out before I show you the footage of the actual construction going on, because I was surprised at how much there was going on. There's been an option extended for homeowners to rebuild at 110% of the previous footprint of their home, okay? A lot of the homeowners love this. Most people are choosing to do this. I do not like this. This may not make me popular with the people who are trying to rebuild in the Palisades, but density was already a major issue in this area, especially the alphabet streets. And you'll see when I show you this drone footage, you'll see how tightly packed these lots are. We're going to allow people to increase the density by 10%. Like, we've talked about how evil and malicious this is, that you have insane politicians like Scott Wiener and Gavin Newsom who are pushing for more high density housing in this area. And one of the arguments that I always make is it's not a political one, it's not an economic one. It's simply the idea of putting more density, more population density in a fire zone is ludicrous, and you can't do it. Well, we also shouldn't be doing more housing density just in terms of the footprint of a single family home, when that spacing in between homes was already a problem. You need fuel breaks, guys. This applies in the wildlands, and it also applies in your fucking neighborhood. I don't think we should be giving people this option to expand their footprint by 10%. I think this is a bad mistake. People are going to have to build with the most fire-resistant materials, but even with that, we're just setting ourselves up for potential failure. I don't like it. I'm curious what you guys think. Am I the odd one out on this? Like, I don't want to be the big government stooge who's like restricting things, but we didn't have to give people an allowance for 110%. We could have just left it at, you can build in your existing footprint. I still maintain that the city should be snatching up lots and making them dog parks to break up that mosaic, but we don't trust the city, so that's never going to happen. Now, let's take a look at the construction. Now, you can see here, there's this one home that's digging out. They're excavating in order to prep for pouring the foundation. So they're putting in some work. There was a lot of construction going on out there. But I want to show you, it was a lot more than I thought there would be. But the issue is, I thought there would be none. You'll notice there's not a whole lot going on. Not a whole lot going on. Still flying. We're not seeing a whole lot. I'm curious what your guys, oh, there's one. There's one. We've got one framed up. Now, the thing to understand is some of the homes that are getting framed up, there's another one. Cool, we got two. Some of these homes that are getting framed up, these are, a lot of these lots where they are getting framed up, they were empty prior to the fire, right? They were already permitted for construction for either renovation or a new build. And so they had already gone through some of this process. And so they were kind of fast-tracked because they were already on track. There's one. There's one. Now, we don't know exactly if these homes that we're seeing, you see how tight those spaces are, by the way. Let me just run that back. Look at how little clearance there is to the perimeter of this property. Do you see this? That home is built, basically, there's only room for a tiny walkway around the edge of that home. So these homes are going to be stacked together with no spacing. So if there's another conflagration that moves through here, these homes don't stand a chance. They do not stand a chance. It's unbelievable that we're still doing this. Let's continue. What are you guys noticing out here? I'm going to cut to a wide shot in a second. Oh, there, we've got some concrete coming in. We're going to pour a foundation. Now we've reached sort of the edge of the alphabet streets. That's Fire Station 69 right there. Now here's the master wide. And I'm trying to run this drone slowly so you guys can just see for yourself how much construction is actually going on there. What does it look like to you? Now I'm going to pause it up here where we can see like the maximum amount of construction going on, because you've got 4 in view right here. Okay, so this is the best case scenario right here. Now, on each of these blocks, you have 2 columns of 15 lots. So each block has 30 lots on it. So in this shot, you're looking at 30, 60, 90, 120. Just between these 2 streets, you're looking at 120 lots. You've got 4 houses going up. And that's the most dense block. Look at this. There's nothing going on. There's 1 structure being built out of probably, in this shot, you can probably see about 330 lots. That's it. That's what we're getting, guys. I told you it was bad. Now, forgive me for misleading you guys by saying there was a lot more construction going on than I thought. That's because I honestly thought that nothing was happening. This is really, really bad. We are 9 months after this incident, and this is all that we have. Where you've got about 6 or so structures being put up in an area that has 600, 700 lots. That's it. That's it. Guys, I initially said it's going to be 12 years before this closely resembles. Look at that. Turning to reveal more here. You can see nothing is happening, guys. Nothing. I was blown away by how little was going on. It's unbelievable. This is why Senator Rick Scott was so shocked when Spencer took him around. It is shocking how little is happening in the Palisades. And like I said, initially I was saying that it was going to take 12 years, and I got a lot of pushback. People saying to me, oh no, we're building now. It's going to be 6 months. That was several months ago that I was getting pushback on that. I got to push my projection back. I think it's going to be 25 years. I think it's going to be 25 years before the Palisades resembles a neighborhood again. And it pains me to say that, but I think that's the reality. I think that's the reality. Now, I want to check in on the chat, the Blue Fire. So Ken is chiming in and saying the Blue Fire is about to hit the home that I built with my own hands with his dad. That is not good. So the Blue Fire, we've talked about this before. I told you to keep your eyes on that fire. I told you guys to keep your eyes on the Blue Fire. You guys remember that? I think it was 3 streams ago. Well, now it's risking impacting homes. We're at, 1,200 acres with this thing. We've got evacuation orders. The thing is, this is in remote Northern California where people kind of don't care about it. We're close to the Oregon border, and it's these are the forgotten people. These are the forgotten people. We only care about the fires that impact these, densely packed urban areas. And we don't care about the rural folks up here, the salt of the earth people who live in maybe the most pristine areas of California that haven't been ruined by everybody else. So let's hope that this thing is backing into that community, because remember, fire that goes downhill burns with far less intensity, and it gives them an opportunity to fire off the area below it and maybe corral this. So let's pray for Ken's family and hope that we get some backing fire and it's manageable. Told you to keep your eyes on this one. Put it on your radar. Now, I got into more hot water. People are sticking with this bullshit narrative. People are still getting triggered. Whenever I talk about the reality of the winds on the Palisades fire, specifically over the Palisades, where there was the most destruction, everybody gets mad at me. I do not understand it. I'm just telling you guys the numbers. By the time the fire reached the ocean, it had burned through most of the Palisades. It was only 36 miles an hour. I think there was a peak gust at 38 maybe. And yeah, it picked up later in the night. But they keep saying that there was 80 mile per hour winds on this fire. Now, I should specify, there were never 80 mile per hour winds on the Palisades. There were some winds over around Malibu where they got some pretty significant gusts. But the thing is, those gusts were not in alignment with the fire. Now, in coming streams, I'll share some of my footage of the Malibu properties that got burned down, because there's some really interesting burn patterns there that I think are relevant for all the people who say that, you know, it's not a wildfire issue, it's an urban conflagration issue, and the fire is just spreading from home to home. Really? I'm going to show some footage that I got that's going to disprove that. I mean, obviously, I know that's bullshit just because I've been on so many of these fires, but I want you guys to see what I'm seeing. Now, people get so triggered by this whenever, like, everyone wants to fight me on this. Like, oh, I think whatever station you keep using for this argument was either underexposed or underneath a part of the mountain wave called the rotor, which has much lower wind speeds. Who cares? Who cares? So you're admitting that the wind speeds were lower. Where, like, I don't care what the wind speeds were up on Boney Mountain, 20 miles away. Just because that's technically the same area, it's not even remotely close to where the alphabet streets are. And what you people need to understand is I'm not just talking about the RAWS data. This isn't just about what the weather stations were clocking, okay? And if you want to claim that I'm only citing an underperforming weather station, well, then you have to admit that the stations that you're citing that are saying 80 miles per hour, they're overcranking. We're only going to believe the weather stations that we want to believe? Now, I've told you guys, there were areas that got 70, 80 mile per hour winds. They just weren't in the Palisades. And I'm not just relying on the NWS data, which is here. What I'm relying on is a combination of things. Yes, we have the NWS data, but we also have video on scene. The thing that you guys need to understand, I've spent a lot of time chasing fires in my career. So I know a lot of people in this business, both firefighters and civilians and journalists who were on this fire. I have so much footage from inside this fire. Most of it I can't share, okay? It's not mine to share. A lot of it comes from firefighters themselves, and it's not for public consumption. So I'm not just going off of weather station data. Look at the palm trees. Does that look like they're getting hit with 80 mile per hour winds? Fire is here. It's here on Palisades Drive during this clusterfuck of an evacuation. It is already burning up tons of homes. Here's another video. This is from the Alphabet Streets.
So this is Embry. We're on Embry.
This is up in an area that we showed. Here, I'll show you where it's at. It's right around here. This was filmed right around here, okay? I want you to look at this and tell me how windy you think this looks. Here, you can see these super tall eucalyptus trees just dancing in the wind. Limbs flying everywhere. Look at the palm trees. Are they bent over under these tremendous winds? Now, I'm not denying that this was a wind-driven fire. It was. And guys, 38 mile per hour gusts are plenty, more than enough for a raging wildfire, but it's also manageable. The Silverado fire in 2020, which we've covered many times, it had legitimate 75, 80 mile per hour winds that surfaced over the fire. The thing you have to understand about those stations that are clocking 80 mile per hour winds, they're oftentimes ridgetop stations that are getting ridgetop gusts that then go straight up. They go like a skateboarder going off a ramp. They don't drop down and then surface at the same intensity on the ground where the fire is. So you can have upper level winds that are 80 miles per hour, but they have no impact on the fire itself. Now, again, 38 miles an hour is plenty for a ripping fire, a very destructive fire, but it's also manageable because on the Silverado fire with 75 and 80 mile per hour gusts, they didn't lose any homes. This is a manageable fire. You can still get in there and fight fire. And what pisses me off is that so many homes burned down that didn't need to be burned down because they did not have enough people. And I'm not singling out firefighters. There weren't enough people hanging around to put the fire out, and they could have done it. And this brings me to another point. We need to change the discussion on evacuations, okay? I've avoided getting into this in the past. I've avoided getting into this in the past because this is another subject where people freak out. Soft people who have been conditioned by government to believe that they need to be afraid of fire, that they are completely powerless, and they need to evacuate immediately. Now, I remember there was a shift We've covered this this document from 1982, where LA County Fire Department used to educate homeowners on how to safely defend their own properties. We used to treat people like adults. We don't do that anymore. We just say, get out immediately. There was a shift. I remember it clearly after the campfire in Paradise. We lost 85 people. So of course, the reaction to that is to freak out. And now we make sure that everybody leaves immediately. So when we had the Kincaid fire back in 2019, the following year, they evacuated half the fucking state preemptively. And it was so unnecessary. I think they evacuated like 200,000 people. It was so, they were evacuating all the way out to the coast for a fire that was burning in Sonoma. It was nuts. So they clearly developed a policy of like, well, we don't want to risk having people die. So we're just going to evacuate everybody and we're not going to let them in for weeks, which is what they do. It is very frustrating. Now, I get in trouble because people will say, oh, people are going to die. They can't survive in this. They can't fight the fire. What, are you going to fight it with a hose and buckets? Yeah, that's what you're going to do. Remember this live stream from Brandy, from Fire Photo Girl? Notice how the fire is starting to impact the neighborhoods. It's spotting these tiny little fires in people's ornamental vegetation. This is how this stuff unfolds. It's not this wall of fire hitting the neighborhood. It's these little spot fires that here, she just grabbed a hose and she's putting it out. This home survived, probably because of her, because she's just standing there. And by the way, you can endure this stuff. So for anybody who's saying that, oh, you couldn't do anything, look at all these homes that are about to get burned down because they just have one bush that's on fire. Just one. That's it. Here's a couple of bushes. You could put this out with buckets. And for anybody saying, oh, you think you can put out a raging wildfire like the Palisades fire out with buckets?
But I want to talk to this person right here, Randy Stoklos. He came up to me. He's been a resident in this neighborhood for 65 years, and he told me that he's been helping his neighbors, saving houses, trying to save some of the trees here. Randy, you've been here since yesterday. What's been your experience?
Well, first of all, you know, seeing the fire coming off the hill and coming out from Palisades Highlands, I knew that we were in trouble because of the wind direction. I am, I think, the only one that stayed on through probably 500 homes up here. And I stayed the night. I saved my home, but it's sheer devastation here. The water's all off, so you can't go there. I was bucketing out of my jacuzzi in a pool across the way at people's homes. I stopped a couple fires. I stopped one that went, and then it reignited at about 4:30 this morning. And
this is a dude in his 60s who stayed behind, and by taking buckets out of his hot tub because the water was off, because of Karen Bass, thank you, and LADWP, he was just using buckets. He saved his home with buckets from his hot tub. And I know a lot of people who stayed behind and saved their homes with a garden hose or with buckets out of their swimming pool. Now, guys, we really need to talk about this. All right. I'm going to start getting more assertive with this stuff. First off, if you're going to stay, you need to have a robust understanding of fire behavior. Okay. You need discernment to know if you're in a survivable spot or a non-survivable spot. But I think you guys would be surprised at how survivable some of these conflagrations are. I want to show you some of the situations I got into when I was filming Hot Shot. This was on the Saddle Ridge fire, which did have 75-mile-per-hour winds, legitimate 75-mile-per-hour winds driving this fire through Porter Ranch and Sylmar. Okay, so this had way worse winds than Palisades fire did. And now look at where I'm getting this shot. Look at where I am. I'm right up against the sidewalk where this home is spewing out an absolute fireball. That's what it looks like when you have legit 75-mile-per-hour winds on your fire, okay? Not like the Palisades. But look at this. And all I'm wearing is a brush shirt. I didn't wear like this double Nomex that the structure guys wear. I didn't wear a mask. I was just wearing Caterpillar work pants and a brush shirt because I was always trying to pursue the hot shots. And so I wore Wildland gear, which is basically just like a button-up flannel shirt that's yellow. That's basically what a brush shirt is. I never had any problem. Do you think that I possess some magical superpower that allow me to stand in the middle of this urban conflagration and not die. And I can't tell you, I went to dozens of these. I went to so many of these. And unless I am a disembodied ghost, I somehow survived all of this. You guys don't realize a lot of these areas are survivable. Look at this. This is from the Easy Fire. This is from the Easy Fire in Simi Valley, 2019. Again, way worse winds than the Palisades. This is what it looks like when you have legit winds on your fire. Not like what we saw in the Palisades fire. Look at this. Again, I was just out there with my brush shirt. You'd be surprised at what you can survive. And in my experience, most of the fatalities on these fires are from evacuation. People get smoked out, they drive off the side of the road. And the other thing is, if you're driving through like a narrow wooded forest road, right? A small 2-lane road, and you have 200-foot tall trees or 100-foot tall trees on either side of the road, yeah, those flames are gonna rake across that road. But you could be standing at the edge of a driveway from somebody's house with winds coming at you like a blowtorch and flames just shooting out of here, and you're fine. I'm right next to these guys. Okay? It's not as bad as you think. It really isn't. Now, you have to be honest with yourself about your physical fitness. And if you can endure this kind of stuff, it's because it is intense and it gets difficult to breathe, but it's survivable. The other thing you have to realize is how these things move through the neighborhoods. It's not this wall of fire that just washes over the entire neighborhood. This is how it goes down. This is from the IA on the Palisades fire. Listen.
Yeah, I see from Division Alpha. Our companies on Lockman have several homes burning. All the ornamental vegetation is taken off. They're actively engaged. They'll need more resources on Lockman as we're working our way across. Yeah,
You notice that? What is he saying? All the ornamental vegetation is taking off. That's a very important thing that I keep hammering home, guys. This is always how it goes down. Notice how there's all these little spot fires in the ornamental vegetation, the palm trees, and then it's spreading to the home. Look, here in this vegetation outside the homes are not on fire yet. If you were there, you could mitigate this stuff. And notice, like, we're getting footage here in the middle of the street. You've got media guys. Look, where's this footage being taken from? It's taken from the middle of the street, which is the survivable area. Like that's where I was, like on the Thomas fire when the entire neighborhood was burning around me. I was just standing in the middle of the street. So clearly someone is able to stand there and film this. And all you have is one bush that's on fire for now. But because nobody is there, it can't be put out. Something that you could put out with a bucket. Legitimately, you could put that down with a bucket. And maybe you couldn't get this bush put out, right? But once it starts spreading to the eaves or to the next one that's closer to your house, if you're there and you're paying attention, you can knock down that second spot fire before it gets unmanageable. But no, we all leave. And the resources are not there. The resources were not there. There were not enough firefighters, and I do not blame the firefighters for this. And trust me, guys, I have a lot of footage from firefighters on the incident. And you can hear, like, look, certain things are not for public consumption, so I'm not going to show it. So I understand that you have to sort of take it on faith that I'm not making this shit up, but I'm trying to show you as much video evidence as I can. But I have footage from firefighters as well. And you can hear them talking about how, yeah, they wish they could go and defend a place, but they're out of water. The water was gone. There were so many structures that burned on day 2 that shouldn't have burned, but because they couldn't fight fire anywhere and everybody had left because they tell everybody, just leave immediately. Don't defend your home. Don't understand anything about fire behavior. Everyone just out. And then it creates this bottleneck in that fatal funnel where people got their cars murked, not by fire, but by a bulldozer. Total unnecessary destruction because we just impulsively tell everyone to evacuate. And we have this pussy generation of people who every time you say, hey man, maybe we shouldn't be evacuating. Maybe people should stay and defend. People freak out over that. They think it's just automatic death. That's not how it works. People die evacuating, okay? We need to have a grown-up conversation about this. And we need to go back to this 1980s mentality where we educate people who live in the wildland-urban interface on how to survive wildfire, both with home hardening, but also when that inevitable conflagration does move through, how to manage it. I do not think that most people should be evacuating. Some people, like on Upper Chautauqua and the area like where Spencer lived, that area you want to evacuate, okay? So this requires discernment. But I'm telling you, most of those areas down in the alphabet streets, like where this video was shot, I ain't leaving. I wouldn't leave that. I don't care if every home is on fire. I see enough clearance there. I feel fine. And I've personally been in situations like this, like on the Hennessy fire, where I had similar clearance, similar width street, and every single home was on fire. I was fine. I was fine. It got a little hairy, but I never worried about my life, you know? So, guys, take it from me. I've been on a lot of these things. Most of these areas, most of these urban areas are survivable. Now, if you live in a very rural community where you are surrounded by forest, that's a problem. And the other issue, guys, we have this other myth beyond just the winds. We have this myth where people say that these fires are just jumping from home to home to home to home to home. And we shouldn't do fire breaks. We shouldn't do any fuel clearance. We shouldn't get rid of any plants. Look at how crazy the winds are on these trees. Give me a break. Guys, stop using the winds as an excuse, because this is what government wants to use as their get out of jail free card. Because if the winds are unprecedented, then it's not their fault that they ran out of water and didn't have enough fire engines. There's nothing they could have done. It's unprecedented winds. Don't look at this video of Brandy saving somebody's home with a fucking garden hose because they left and weren't there to do it. And there were no firefighters there to take care of it. Don't mind this video. Don't watch this. This is verboten. This is unacceptable. But this whole idea that these conflagration, everyone says, we don't have a wildfire problem. We have an urban conflagration problem. It's like, yeah, there's some truth to that. And my footage from Malibu is going to punch some holes in this. But guys, where the fuck did the fire come from in the first place? Why are those first homes on fire in the first place? It came from Topanga State Park. It came from the fucking brush. I'm so tired of everybody telling me that this is all just an urban conflagration problem and that fuel breaks wouldn't have done anything. Where did the fire come from? Well, I'm pretty sure it came from these plants. So we need to get rid of those fucking plants. All right? Oh, man, I'm a little hot tonight. I'm sorry, guys. Something about being in LA, it puts you in a bad mood. Like the moment you get there. In Tennessee, nobody honks their horns. Nobody. Even if somebody is totally asleep at the wheel and they don't go out into the intersection on a yellow and you miss the light, nobody honks. Ever. Ever. The moment you get to California, my goodness. People are honking, flipping each other off. It's just a weird, nasty, demonic kind of energy in SoCal. It's just not the way that I remembered it when I was growing up. And it's sad to see. And it just sort of, I don't know, man, it makes you hard. It makes you hot and angry. And it's tough because it really is such a beautiful place. But, you know, what's frustrating is it's changing so rapidly. And like fires like this is going to make it change even worse. Because now we have foreign buyers coming in and snatching up all these burned out properties in a fire sale and pushing out the generational Californians, like the OGs who were actually born and raised here. They didn't get imported from Chicago and totally change the character of the place. They're all getting pushed out now. And at a certain point, even though I don't like to get conspiratorial, but the lack of water and the lack of firefighters and these fires, these spot fires that could have so easily been put out with just a bucket of water. Dude, if people were here, they could have saved their homes and they could have survived this if shit went sideways. I'm sorry. They could have. I've done it too many times. And I wasn't wearing a spacesuit while I did it. I'll show you guys my body cam footage on the next stream that we do, just so I can show you how vulnerable and exposed I was. And I was fine. Guys, don't over exaggerate how crazy these things are. It's not like the movies. And if people were just here with some buckets, they could have saved their homes. But when you look at how they force everyone to evacuate, even then, though they know that this is survivable, and there's no fire engines up here, and there's no water, at what point, when you see everything getting sold off to foreign buyers, at what point do you ask yourself, is this deliberate? I don't like going, I hate the conspiracy theories. But at a certain point, you have to just throw your hands up and wonder, are they doing this on purpose? I hope not, man. Anyway, that's all I got. Sorry for being such a crummy mood. There were no good like dad jokes tonight. I wasn't smiling. I was just bitter. I'm sorry. You don't deserve that. But it's the residual from LA that's just brushing off on you guys. You're welcome. So just give me a couple days in Tennessee, hugging my donkey and my chickens and my pig, and I'll calm down. I'll be nicer on the next stream. Anyway, thanks for bearing with me, guys. Let's all say a prayer for Ken and his family up on the Blue Fire. Keep an eye on that one. He's saying that they've got some downslope winds that could cause a problem. All right. Remember, fires happen in communities that get forgotten all the time. So let's just keep that in our prayers. All right. Remember, in this dystopian world of AI, the only way to prove you're human is to do it live.